senior capstone. I just wanted to introduce you to her board, some of which you'll know, 2/3 of us perhaps. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Mr. Patrick Daugherty from Regional Radio Sports. Okay, so he, as many of you already may know, he does some of the radio broadcasting of our men's and women's sports program here at Lacrosse. So we welcome you and we thank you for your time once again. So he's been doing this for a couple of years. Also wanted to introduce Dr. Doris Van Auken, the chair of the psychology department. And then I am Diane Barlis from the Center for Global Perspectives and Theology. So Kari and I have been working really hard. She's been working really hard. I haven't been working really hard. So I will turn it over to Kari. So good luck and welcome.
All right, first I would like to say good morning and welcome to my capstone presentation. I would like to extend a special thank you to my board, Dr. Diane Barlis, Dr. Van Auken, and Mr. Doherty. To start off my capstone, I wanted to present you with the quote that I used as my theme. However, I only want to take a specific part from it, and that is learn and experience everything you can and use it to change the world. But I actually wanted to tweak it a little bit and use it to change your world, because not everything you do, you actually change the whole world, but if you're affecting your own world, then you're doing just as much good. My journey began in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's a small city not too far from here. It's really funny because when we would go on AAU tournaments for basketball, the team was like, "Whoa, where are you guys from?" And we're like, "Fort Wayne," and they would kind of like look at us like, "And that is where?" And I'm like, "It's only the second largest city in Indiana, but you know, who pays attention to that?" I was born and raised there by my parents, Sherry and Philip, who are also here, and I have two older brothers, Brandon and Zach. Being the youngest and the only girl, a lot of people would think that that would make you, I guess, a little more timid or used to being like protected, I guess you could say, but I felt that it did the exact opposite for me. I felt that it made me like stronger, more of a risk taker, wiser, because I would learn from their mistakes, and also it just made me a little more outgoing because I was always around boys and didn't really get to interact with girls except for at school. My parents were always supportive. They always pushed us to do good in school. I remember I brought home my first C in like the 4th grade, and it was more so for behavior and not for like academic work. And I remember being really nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be grounded for like a month, like thinking that a C was like the worst grade possible. So that just shows like, that's an example of how they would push me to get A's and B's and just do my best. They also encourage us to do sports. As you can see from that picture, it's a little dark, but I was a cheerleader when I was little. My brothers played for a team called Metro. It was like a football league for those like, I guess you could say like 14 and under, I believe was the age limit. And first I started being a cheerleader there, and I actually was a gymnast at like the YMCA that wasn't too far from our house as well. And I played for a basketball team, but it was more so only because my brothers played, and it was just something to go to pass the time when they were gone. But I didn't actually take it serious until I was in the 6th grade. Once I got to middle school, I joined the basketball team there. I remember being like initially really nervous because, as I said before, I never really played structured basketball. I would just play with my brothers at the park and with my cousins. But once I got there, I just went out on a limb and took this risk and decided to try out for the basketball team. I made the team. I found out I had a little natural talent when it came to basketball. And when I was on the team, I actually met a couple of girls, most of the girls in the picture over there, and they played for an AAU team called Lady Legit. At first, when I joined the team, I guess you could say I was a bench warmer because all the girls were older than I were, and they also had played for the team since they were, I think, like in the 4th grade. So they were all pretty used to each other, and I was new and I was younger, so I really didn't play as much until they actually made a team for our grade, which my dad actually ended up being the coach for. So that was kind of cool how that ended up working out. And I played, that was the only AAU team I ever played for, and that was from like 6th grade all the way until you're too old to play AAU. Also, when I was in middle school, just like a fun fact, I tried out for soccer and cheerleading, but it wasn't more so to actually like make the team because I obviously have no kind of soccer skill. I mean, like I have footwork, but I have no soccer skill. Like those are completely different. And me and 2 of the girls that were in my grade, we like made a little like deal, and we were like, one of them was a soccer player and the other one liked cheerleading, so we like made a deal that we all would try out for each other's teams. So that was just kind of like something fun to do and just to put myself out there a little bit. Obviously, it didn't make the team, but it was just a nice experience. Overall, from basketball, it challenged me mentally and physically. I remember being in middle school, and you have my middle school only had one gym, so if the guys had practice at the same time as us, we would just put the big curtain down and have practice on each side. And I remember one day we were over here literally running so hard, the whole practice, and the guys are over there playing 11-man, which if you don't know basketball, it's freelance basketball, and it's really fun and what you would love to do. And while we're over here dying, I could just hear them laughing, having the time of their lives. So that was just a really funny experience as to how working hard is not just something that you would do just to do. It's just it made us better overall, because we ended up having a better record than the boys anyway, so I guess that kind of worked out. And I actually learned how to communicate with girls. This comes to the sisterhood. Initially, as I said before, I didn't really I wasn't around girls as much as girls who have sisters, and really me. My mom was the most girl and girl contact that I would have. So at first I was a little more, I guess you could say, rough than other girls, and a little more blunt than most girls would be. So it was just kind of a fun experience to be able to learn how to talk with girls, hang out with girls, and just do girly things once I got to middle school and joined the basketball team. And even though these girls aren't my real sisters, I really look to them as sisters. They've been there for me ever since I met them, and that's just something nice that I got out of basketball besides the skill and just playing. And from there, this leads to high school. I ended up attending Snyder High School, which was my feeder school. It's actually funny because my parents didn't really want me to go to Snyder. As an 8th grader, we would talk about, maybe you should go to New Haven, which was a school that wasn't too far from our house, literally probably 5 minutes. My dad even tried to bribe me and say he would let me drive to school and drop him off at work. So it was really funny that they really wanted me to go there because they thought that I would be able to excel more on the basketball court. I could be more in the limelight. However, I really wanted to go to Snyder. I had always planned to go to Snyder, especially once I went to Black Hawk, considering all of my friends would go there. My brother was going there, and he's 2 years older than me, so we only got to go to school together for 1 year prior to that because we didn't go to the same elementary. So I was just really excited about going to Snyder. And also, the guy that started the AAU team that I played for, Lady Legit, he was the assistant coach there. And I really wanted to play under him because he has a basketball IQ out of this world. And I just really wanted to play under him and continue to grow under his wing. And also, Snyder was just more diverse and more known for the athletics. The team there was pretty good. I remember my sophomore year, we actually made it to semi-state that year, which was a fun year. But also something interesting I did my sophomore year is I tried out for tennis. I really just did this just to have fun. Once again, me just kind of going out on a limb. I had never played tennis before, ever a day in my life, literally until I walked into that tryout. So it was extremely funny and really fun to be the underdog in the sport. Because as I said, when I started basketball, I kind of had a natural talent for it. And I was only a 6th grader, so it's not they're looking at me wow, this girl's terrible. Because middle school, they don't really pay attention to how much skill you have as much as they do in high school. So it was nice to be able to be in another element and get another feel for another sport, and just to not really know what I was doing, but kind of just having fun with it. And obviously didn't make the team, but it was a nice experience. From there, it was, okay, what's next? I had finished my 4 years in high school, and it was time to think okay, well, where are you gonna go next? Are you gonna go to college? Of course I was gonna go to college, but it was well, where am I gonna go to college? I remember initially thinking, because I didn't really have scholarships just banging at my door or anything. So I remember thinking Mom and Dad, I would be perfectly okay with going to Ohio State and being a normal student. I'm perfectly fine with that. I always have loved Ohio State, so I really didn't see anything wrong with that. But I ended up getting a scholarship here to Holy Cross. It's really funny how it worked out. My coach was actually there to watch Carmen Lowe play. We had played for the same AAU team, and we played against each other's high schools. And coach was there to watch her, and I just ended up having a really good game. So coach was hey, I got to go with that girl too. So that's funny how it worked out. I remember coming to our visit here, and I was okay, this is pretty small, But that really didn't intimidate me because I really wanted to get that one-on-one relationship with my professor because I was always really close with my teachers in high school. And to think of going to a school and being student number 203 just wasn't that appealing to me. So I was really excited about it being small, and I was excited about moving to another city. Like, obviously, South Bend isn't very far from home, so I would be able to go home whenever I pleased. But I also would be away from home, so I could get that independence in branching out and meeting new people. I remember on my visit, I initially thought that the apartments over there were for like senior living. But that's kind of like a pun because it's like literally senior living. But initially I was thinking like, wow, do the seniors get to stay there like when they get older? Like once you're a senior, like those are really nice. I was like so excited about it, like I'm gonna stay there. And then once I got here, I like found out that it was like actual senior living. That was pretty funny. And I remember also being in the little like meeting that you have with the guy in admissions. I can't remember his name. And I remember him telling me about this thing that they have called the 4 pillars. And he was saying about the service learning, and I was like, oh, like that'll be really fun. Like, I want to get engaged in the community and do something fun. And then he was saying about like internship. I was like, oh, that'll be interesting. And then he said something about a capstone. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to stand in front of the whole school and talk by myself for 45 minutes. Like, there's no way that's going to work. Like, I remember getting in the car and telling my parents that I could just leave my junior year so I won't have to do the capstone, which is kind of funny because I obviously ended up staying, but I remember initially being like really freaked out about the whole capstone scenario. But once I came here, I really enjoyed it because I remember being on my visit as well, and as we're walking around, people are saying hi, just being really nice and friendly. I kind of got like that little warm vibe from being here that I didn't get from the other school that I visited. So I was excited about coming here, and also because Carmen was coming here as well, I was like, well, at least I'll know one familiar face. And we also had a girl from our AAU team go over to St. Mary's. So I knew I wouldn't be completely alone, but I wouldn't be right around the corner from my dad to pop up whenever he wanted to. So then this brings me to my first year here at Holy Cross. I remember taking the service learning class. I believe I took it in the spring. And we were talking about like, what track do you want to do? So I'm looking at all of them and I'm like, oh, that'd be fun. Like, that'll be fun. And I was like, oh, how am I going to decide? I eventually chose the Brother Vincent track because it's doing work with Take 10, which is like a program that sends college students out to like elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, and even some after school programs. And you just mentor them and talk with them and teach them like the basic life principles. I was really excited about this because I had experience working with children already. The summer prior to coming my freshman year, I worked for McCracken Camps, which is a basketball camp that's been, I believe they just had like their 43rd anniversary or 53rd, one of the two. Either way it goes, it's been around a really long time, and I was blessed with the opportunity to work with them, and we would have to just teach kids like the basic basketball skills, so like dribbling, shooting, and fun things like that. And I really enjoy working with the children, so I figured why not do Take 10, because it'll be working with children as well. I remember our first class that we went to, it was kindergartners, and initially I was thinking, oh, this is gonna be so fun, like they're so tiny and cute, like how fun is this gonna be? But then it was like, wait, like kindergartners don't listen at all. Like, how is this gonna work? Like, I have experience working with children, but not that much experience to the point where I'll know how to like manage an entire classroom. So I remember just going in there, being open-minded, not really knowing what to expect at all. And I remember we asked them, well, what do you guys remember from Take 10? Because they had college kids come the year prior to that, and like 5 hands go up. So I'm immediately excited, like, okay, they really like got something from this experience that they had last year. Like, now I feel like I have like, you know, like, so they're setting the ball right now. And the first kid, I chose him, and he's like, heads up, 7 up. So I was like, okay, all right, someone else, like, does anyone else remember anything? Literally like 3 kids in a row are like, heads up, 7 up. And I'm like, is this all that you guys remember? And that was just like a funny experience because I was really thinking that they were going to remember the program, but they really didn't remember anything from it. So I kind of took that as a challenge to make sure when the next class comes in and talk to them that they'll remember what we taught them. And because I had such a great experience with it, I ended up continuing to do Take 10 the next year when I came back. And I ended up being in a 4th grade class at McKinley. And I think around 3rd or 4th grade is when they start to split the classes up, girls and boys. So I ended up having a class of all girls. And initially I was kind of nervous about this because I know how it can get when you have a room full of girls. So I was really nervous, but I ended up learning how to communicate with them as well. And I learned that the experience that I had working with McCracken camps and teaching the kids basketball was a different kind of communication than when I would work with the kids in the classroom. Like, it's a different kind of setting. It's just talking to them in a different way. And then I ended up having to learn how to talk to the 4th grade girls as well, because it wasn't as simple as talking to the kindergartners, because they have more knowledge, obviously. So I could actually like raise the bar a little more. And that was just a really cool experience for me as well. Then this brings me to my internship, which was the second pillar that I came into contact with. I remember initially thinking, I have no idea where I'm going to intern. I want to be a psychologist, and it's not like I could just call up some psychologist and say, hey, can I be your administrative assistant and sit in when you like talk to people? So I was really nervous. I didn't really know what to do, but my dad thought of me doing an internship at AWP Sports. I used to train there actually, and I remember the first class that I was in, I was the only girl in the class. Before I began to go there, they only really trained football players. So like around the time that I came, they were just implementing like other sports and basketball. So more girls were starting to come, but I just so happened to be like one of the first girls to come. And it was really cool because being the only girl, it pushed me to like work harder, because obviously I wasn't foreign to that whole situation of being around boys. So it pushed me to work harder and want to stand out, not because I was only a girl, but because I just wanted to be like one of the best in the class as well. And this helped me develop really good relationships with the trainers there as well. And so when my dad thought of me doing an internship there, I was like, well, this would be simple. Like, I know them, so I won't be as nervous to go and talk to them and ask them about being an intern. I ended up asking to intern at the Athletic Leadership Academy, which was like an academy that had just began the year prior to me doing my internship. And it was just a program designed to provide athletes with opportunities of personal growth through the implementation of leadership and character building. I was excited about this because I knew I would be able to interact with the athletes one-on-one, but I was also nervous because you never know with high schoolers. Most of them have that I don't care attitude, and most of the kids that go to AWP are pretty skilled, so they're kind of like, I don't really care what this girl is talking about, like I just want to work out and get out of here. So I was kind of nervous about that, but Jeff was my supervisor. He really put me in charge of a lot of things. As I said, I was the first intern to do this program, so I really had to set the groundwork for it. We had this thing called Focus 30, and I would be in charge of like planning what we would talk about in Focus 30. So we would always have a word of the week, and I would have to like define it in a way that the older kids will understand, but also the younger kids will understand. And I would put the definition on the wall and like add like a cool quote to it so they can like apply it to like their workout for the day or whatever they're going through during that week. We had this thing called Focus 30, and it was a program where we would talk to them for 30 minutes on Wednesdays right before their workout. So within that first 30 minutes. And I remember we would talk to them about just like the basic life things. We actually talked to them about this thing called the 4 seasons of a sport, which I'll explain much more later. But I also was in charge of like calling companies and scheduling service events to get the athletes engaged in the community and helping out. And I remember I had to call the Community Harvest Food Bank. And initially I was really nervous about this because I had never really made a professional phone call to this extent. I mean, my most professional phone calls would be like a job calling me saying like, hey, you want to come in for an interview, which really isn't usually that professional. So I was kind of nervous, but once I called, I think her name was Laura, and I talked to her, I realized like, okay, I'm actually kind of good at this. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I remember actually one time, Jeff couldn't make it to Focus 30. So I had to lead Focus 30, and I wasn't prepared at all. I didn't even know what he was going to talk about. Like, I was really nervous, and it just so happened to be one of the weeks that we didn't have open gym. So I was like, okay, like I'll lead it. And I remember sitting there, and I'm like sweating because I'm so nervous because it's like 10 high schoolers sitting around just staring at me like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you want? And I just remember that experience, and once I began to talk, it was more comfortable, and overall throughout my internship, I really enhanced my written and oral communication, from emailing companies to see if we can come do service work there, calling companies, talking in front of the athletes, and also from teaching them the skills of being a leader. I felt that it actually helped me grow as a leader as well once I came back my senior year, I learned that being the leader wasn't all about having like the basketball IQ or being the most talented on the team. It's actually the small things that matter the most, as in learning how to talk to each player and things of that sort. So I feel like it helped me grow as a person as well doing this internship. And as I said, I was a psych major, and I also got the opportunity to go to Amsterdam, Netherlands with Dr. Van Alkens, both of them, her husband as well. I was really honored by this because they only invited, I want to say, like 10 people. I mean, yes, this isn't a big school, but they didn't invite every single psych major, so I felt kind of like special, I guess you could say. And I was really excited because obviously I had never been to a conference, let alone to a conference in another country. So I was really nervous at first because the last time I went out of the country was when I was 11, I believe, and I went to Jamaica. And I obviously didn't really get to engage myself in the community as much because I was only 11. We really didn't branch out that much. We were in the hotel for the most part, so the gift shop was like the most cultural experience that I got from that. So once we went to this conference, I remember we got there really early, so we had a couple days to really just go out there and see what Amsterdam was like. And we got to like try the different foods and go to their nightclubs and just go to their shopping malls. We did pretty much everything. We even went out to the countryside, which was like in Holland, and we saw the windmills, just the different things that their country has that ours doesn't. Well, we have windmills, but they aren't as like old and cool as those in Amsterdam or the Netherlands. And I remember when we finally went to the conference, we would just sit there and listen to all these. Some of them were like grad students, some of them had just like got their master's, some of them were actual professionals in the business, and they were just presenting their research. And I remember sitting there like, one day I want people to sit in here and listen to me present my research. Well, that day came a little faster than expected, well, at least for us to do our own research. We decided to do research on helicopter parenting, which is overprotective parenting. We did it here at the college. We just passed out like a series of tests to see which students were helicopter parenting and how their coping skill was. Our initial hypothesis for this was the higher the level of helicopter parenting, the lower the level of coping skills, and the higher the level of narcissistic tendencies. You guys probably don't really know what I'm talking about, but it's basically just to see how an overprotective parent would affect someone that's now on their own in college, or if they're actually even on their own. Are they still at home and commute to school? Just different things like that. Our initial hypotheses didn't really work out, so we're still tweaking and trying to find some different ones to see what we can get from the data that we collected. And hopefully one day we can go and present this, which we might be able to. Don't really know that for sure yet. But, sorry. Besides this, overall, throughout my 4 years here at college, I always think back, okay, when did I really grow the most? Or when did I learn most of my like life skills that I carry on? And it always seems to go back to basketball. I don't know if it's just because basketball took up most of my time, or it's just because that's just one of those things that, because you're so engaged in it and you're in so many different environments with it, you learn a lot of things from it. So I would say that basketball helped me with the most mental growth for sure. I remember talking in my sports psychology class with Professor Zaber, and we would talk about mental toughness. I knew about mental toughness and self-talk and positive talk, but I didn't really realize like how bad I was at it actually until we would talk about it and like do videos with it. I remember my freshman year, I had the worst attitude. I mean, it actually wasn't just my freshman year, it was really leading up to that, but I guess it just was more noticeable my freshman year. I remember a time in particular we were at practice. We actually had practice over at St. Mary's, and we were doing a drill, and I had got beaten on the drill. So then I like stopped and I was like waiting to like go again and like start from right there. And then coach was like, "Kari, why did you stop?" And I'm like I thought I was supposed to like stay here. But you know, me like not thinking that I'm actually getting smart, I'm just thinking that I'm responding to what she said. She took it as me getting smart, and so did some of the other girls. So I really had to sit back and think like, all right, maybe I need to learn how to communicate with them in the way that they don't feel that I'm getting smart all the time or that I'm always talking back, but in fact I'm just responding simply. So over the time, I had to learn how to communicate with my coach. And not only that, as I grew to be a leader, I had to learn how to communicate with all the girls. Everyone's different. So the same way that I would talk to Carmen, as in like I would be a little more aggressive with Carmen because we know each other and we knew how we communicated. I couldn't talk that way with someone that was new or someone that just didn't have that same personality. So that was really something I had to learn from all of my experiences throughout basketball and understanding that everyone's different. So you can't deal with every situation the exact same. So overall, I would say that I matured over time as a captain, especially my last year from my junior year. My junior year, when I was voted as captain, I kind of felt that I was voted as captain because I was an upper class. I mean, I'm outspoken, but I didn't feel that I really held the characteristics of a true leader. But I felt that I channeled most of them more once I got into my senior year, especially after all the things that I learned from my internship, which my coach actually also gave me feedback on that I had grown over the years. And that was just really nice to see that most of my work had actually paid off eventually. But also with basketball, it pushed my body. Obviously with basketball workouts, you're gonna work your body as hard as you can. I remember preseason always being the hardest, like whether it was in high school or whether it was in college. And during the preseason really is when mental toughness came into play. It comes into play during games as well, but during conditioning, you're really just literally killing your body. Like you're trying to get it ready for the season. So your practice will literally be running, I could say 80% of the time we were there. Sometimes we would have open gym, but that was like a luxury. And even with open gym, after all that running, it's not even fun because your legs are so tired. So I really had to push myself in preseason because that was always the hardest time. And I remember actually in high school, we really didn't have an off season. You would go from school ball to AAU, and you would continue AAU until like midsummer, where you would do school ball for like a month, and then you would go right back to AAU. And once AAU was over, it was time for conditioning. So I really didn't have time to be lazy and sit around or anything like that. But once I like started to go here, that summer before I got here, I was thinking like, oh, it's my last summer as a high schooler. Like, I'm not gonna work out that much. I really paid for that once season started. And I remember also at my internship, we talked about the 4 season in college, which I touched on a little bit earlier. I'll explain more. It's kind of just helping the students or the athletes understand that your sport has seasons. Not necessarily like, not the seasons as far as the year, but seasons as far as like what's going on at the time. And at first they were kind of looking like, I have no idea what you're talking about or what my season is. So then I gave them the example of my seasons. I said that my winter was like off season. It's the summer where you're not really doing much, you're working out, but it's on your own and it's not as intense as it is during the season. Then there's the spring, which is conditioning. It's kind of like if you're a gardener, like you're putting in all of this work and you're just waiting for your flowers to blossom. And then that's the fall, is when the beginning of season, everything's starting to roll, you're starting to actually reap the benefits of all that hard work you put in during conditioning. And then there's summer, that's mid-season. I say this would be like our conference time. So it'll be December to January is when everything's going, like you're on a roll. It's the booming season, which is like the summer. It's the best season, obviously. So it just kind of was like that. Like that's how I compared it to them. And it was cool that they really soaked that in. And then all of them could tell me their own seasons. Like there was a girl who played hockey. She explained her season. There was baseball players whose season would be like kind of the opposite of ours, considering like they would play, like their season started after us. So it's just really interesting to hear all of their seasons as well. I plan to use all these experiences and growth that now that I'm entering the real world in the adult life. And the first thing that I'm going to go out and do is move to Texas. I'm kind of nervous about it, but I'm really excited because I'm just ready for something different, something new. Get out of my element, which is Indiana now. So I'm going to move to Texas. The reason why I planned to move to Texas is because the University of North Texas, they have this PhD program that I feel is the perfect fit for me. It's like your PhD, but you can enter it with a bachelor's and you can get your master's along the way. It's in counseling psychology, then it specializes in sports psychology, which I feel is perfect for me. So that's the ultimate goal. I didn't actually apply for this upcoming fall, but I'm going to apply for the next one. But until then, I have been exploring the options of doing an internship at the Center for the Academic Development of Student Athletes. This is at Southern Methodist University. I don't really know if you guys know that. That's in Dallas, Texas. it's like a really good university out there, and I want to do this internship because I will be working with student athletes. It's obvious that a lot of student athletes tend to pay a little more attention to the athlete part, particularly boys. So I really am going to take this opportunity to help them understand that the student part does come first. That's why it's a student athlete. So I feel like this would be a good opportunity for me because I'm always like, people that go to school just to play basketball and then don't even like finish and get their degree. I feel like it's so pointless. So I feel like this would be a nice opportunity for me to talk to them and help them understand me. And I feel that being a student athlete now will make me a little more relatable to them than like a professor telling them the same thing. I've also been looking at an internship at the Rick Anthony Athletic Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that just works with kids with learning disabilities, so like kids that have like ADHD and things of that sort. And I just feel like that would be interesting because I'll be around sports and also get to mentor kids. You like check on them like every month or something like that, and just to make sure they're doing good, that their progress is actually rolling. How will I know that it's the perfect one for me, like the perfect job for me? If I'm working with people, pretty much to any capacity, I feel like it'll be a good fit for me just because I enjoy working with people. It's like a joy that I get from it that's kind of like hard to explain. I don't know if you guys like have anything that you just like love to do that you really don't get anything from but happiness. It's kind of like one of those things. Like if I'm helping anyone in any way, I just enjoy it. So I'll know that it's a good fit for me if I'm working with people. I don't want to just, sit behind a desk and type all day or anything like that. Also, I want it to be a stepping stone to becoming a psychologist. So I want it to be something that I'll put on my resume and it actually is beneficial and not just something to fill up my resume. And also I want to do something that's meaningful and not just a check. So as I said, I don't want to just sit behind a desk and type or anything. Like I want to be engaged with people. I'm really a people person, so that's just a good fit for me. And I wanted to just lead me into being a psychologist. As I said, the ultimate goal is to be a sports psychologist, which was inspired by the class that I took my sophomore year. So I just feel that if I can find anything that'll help me get to that point or help me prepare to get to that point, then it will be a good fit for me.